Hello and welcome to another episode of the Emetophobia-Free podcast. Today we are joined by the lovely Claire, who is here today all the way from Scotland, sunny Scotland.
Yes, it's very sunny today. Very lovely. Very lovely.
Lovely. So Claire is a mum of an ex-emetophobe that we took through the programme. Now, how old was your daughter when she went through the programme, Claire? Do you remember?
She would have been 9 when she went through the programme.
9. Okay.
Yeah.
So Claire's daughter Lauren was 9 when she went through the programme for emetophobia. Claire went through alongside her with myself as her coach. And then later on, Claire decided to go through it again herself, for herself.
I did. I loved it so much.
Yes, which was really, really important. And Claire's here today to talk about the importance of your role as a parent when you are taking a child through who has emetophobia and supporting a child with emetophobia. And how that is actually really important because you can't just focus on the child. You do need to look at yourself as a parent, how you're responding to them, any limiting beliefs that you've got, any areas in your life that you're not thriving, because ultimately you're the one that's spending all the time with your child. So Claire's here today to talk about that. So I'm going to ask Claire to start from the top, if you will, and start from the very beginning. What was Lauren's and your own life like when she had emetophobia?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. So I think when Lauren's emetophobia started, she was probably quite young, so maybe about 7. And I think we tried to kind of just manage that, put it down to a little bit of shyness, of not wanting to go places. And I think that really came to a peak for us probably when she was kind of that age 9. Where I found the Thrive programme was lying on a sunbed in Lanzarote, which was meant to be a lovely family holiday with both sets of grandparents. But Lauren's emetophobia had really become like a quite a big challenge for her at that point and for us as a family. So we did make it on the holiday. I thought we might not at one point, but she was really uncomfortable on the holiday. She was having panic attacks daily. She wouldn't eat in the restaurant. She wouldn't go into any of like the social spaces where there was lots of people. She was worried she would be sick with the food. She would eat maybe like a pack of crisps because she thought that was a safe food or something that she knew. And really just it just had become so difficult to really do anything as a family, and trying to support her was really difficult because I didn't know at that point what to do and how to help her. And I'd really probably at that point become a little bit socially anxious myself, because before we went anywhere I always knew that Lauren was going to have this real panic, and I created that situation myself as well because I just I didn't believe she would cope. She didn't believe she would cope. So it just became easier to not do things really. So fortunately when lying on that sunbed I found the Emetophobia-Free kind of page, and that was when we started our journey with Thrive and with the Emetophobia-Free course, which was truly life-changing for us, but I'll talk about that later. But really that's the situation that led me to where we were. I just emetophobia had got really difficult at that point.
Brilliant. For the other parents out there who are discovering, possibly just at the beginning of the journey, discovering emetophobia, when did you first hear that word? When did you discover that's what it was? And was it immediately obvious that that's what it was, or did you go through a period of not being sure what was going on for Lauren?
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't know what it was. I think probably lots of Googling and working out that actually the phobia of sickness is called emetophobia. Prior to that, I would never have heard of it, so I would not have known anything about it. We had tried CBT for quite a period of time before, just to help support with Lauren's anxiety and just how she felt around those social situations. So whilst I guess I knew she had a worry about sickness, I didn't realise the extent or the underlying kind of situation with the seriousness of her having emetophobia at that time. I just, we kind of, all kids are scared of something. So I guess at that point, I just thought it was a little bit of shyness, nervousness, her worrying about kind of social things. She didn't like to go to birthday parties. She didn't
Mm.
like to go to kind of events where she didn't know what was happening, where there was going to be lots of people. But yeah, I definitely didn't know it was emetophobia at that time.
No.
So I think a lot of Googling and yeah, fortunately kind of found the Emetophobia-Free page, which had so much useful information on it. And I guess at that point that just clicked to
Yes.
give me a real kind of understanding of what was going on for her.
Brilliant. Okay. So from the point where you got in contact with the Emetophobia-Free team, what did the journey look like for you and Lauren from the start, if you will? What did it look and feel like for you?
So I think, I guess where Lauren thinks this started was a barbecue that we had at home where she was sick, and that was with some neighbours. So I guess we started at that point that she then started to avoid some of those situations. So we didn't want to have barbecues and she didn't want to have events where there was lots of people there. And what I, as a parent, then did was I helped her avoid those things. So
Right.
because it just all became so difficult and I didn't want her to have to face that challenge or to deal with that difficult situation, I stopped doing things. So we stopped
Right.
having people round. We stopped having like friends for dinner or neighbours for barbecues.
Yeah.
We'd have family events, and before we even went out the door, like Lauren would be so anxious, she'd have a meltdown before we went out the door. So it just became easier to make an excuse.
Yes.
So we'd make excuses for why we couldn't make it or like, why we couldn't be there, because I didn't want her to experience that like anguish or feel that
Yeah.
that way like when we're going to things. But I think in retrospect, like one, that wasn't helping her build her coping capability.
Yeah.
I was emphasising to her that actually you can't cope and I don't believe you can either.
Yes.
And yeah, I think for me, like at that point, I became quite like, I lost a lot of my social confidence because I stopped going places and everything. I just never knew what it was going to be like when I was in that situation. So instead of being able to relax and enjoy myself, I was really worried about how Lauren was feeling, or was she okay, or
Yeah.
was she going to cope with it? So yeah, it's I think I realised at that point that I needed to help myself as well.
Yes. But it's a totally understandable reaction, isn't it? Excuse me, as a parent. Because if you've got beliefs around your child and wanting to make them happy, wanting to make them comfortable, which we all do, right? We all want happy, comfortable children. Excuse me. But that's also tied in with some social anxiety on your own part and thinking, well, if she has a meltdown, I don't know how to handle it. And what are people going to think if she has a meltdown? And how am I going to respond in that situation? And what if people think I'm doing the wrong thing, or if they judge me for my child's behaviour? When it's tied in with all of that, then it's very hard to push through, if you will, and help her build coping skills and be that support for her and manage her emotions, because being able to respond powerfully to your child's emotions is a really powerful skill set, and it's really pivotal in helping them overcome their emetophobia. Because if they see you as being scared of their emotions, or that the child's emotions are too big for you as the parent, then they get the message that their emotions are too big for them too. And they are something to avoid, and they are something to be scared of, and they are something to try and work their way around. And that's not the message that we want to be giving. So great that you were able to identify that. How did that play out in terms of going through the program? So you got in touch with the team and you started the program. When did it become really apparent that you would have to change what you were doing as a parent in order to support Lauren fully?
So I think I already knew some of that because I knew that like some of the conflict between Lauren and I, like frustrations, I already knew that I was part of the problem. That was why I knew that I wanted to go through the program with a coach, because I knew that I needed that third party to really help us kind of understand and kind of untangle that a bit.
Yeah.
I think like as soon as I started reading the manual, I knew straight away
Yes.
that was like I needed to really focus on working on like some of those aspects myself. Like I realised that like I had put in a number of like control mechanisms in place to really try and keep Lauren safe, and they weren't
Yeah.
really doing her any favours. They weren't helping her, and I'd become like so embroiled. So like you say, like my whole belief systems, like everything that I believed in was around like I can't be happy if the kids aren't happy, or if like, you know, people around me aren't happy, and I'd completely lost myself somewhere in
Yeah.
trying to be this great parent, trying to help like Lauren overcome her emetophobia and the challenges that she was facing. But really I wasn't doing that, and I recognised straight away I wasn't doing that in the best way possible, and that actually I wasn't a good role model at that point, not because I was a bad mum, but just
No.
because I was struggling myself to understand how best to help and how best to support. So I think going through that programme with Lauren really helped me to start to identify some of those areas that I needed to work on. You know, particularly around probably how much control I like, and like a lot of like I was probably quite catastrophic in my thinking. So I'd like if she had a tiny fall, I would be like, oh my goodness, this is awful. Like, are you going to be
Yes.
okay? Whereas really it was just a scrape. Or so yeah, I learned a lot like in those first few weeks really of working through that programme with Lauren.
Yeah, brilliant. So you mentioned something there that was really interesting, and it's something that we hear a lot, and something as parents, a lot of parents can resonate with, which is that I'm not happy until the kids are happy. Right? If the kids are unhappy, I'm not happy, or you're only as happy as your unhappiest. No, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. That's the saying, isn't it? So can you explain how that was holding you back? Because I think some parents listening to this might be thinking, well, that's right, because if my parents aren't happy, then I'm not going to be happy, because it's, you know, it's their belief system. Can you just add a little bit more meat to that, to those bones, really, and sort of explain why that's actually a really unhelpful belief system to hold?
Yeah, so I guess what I recognised was that I was a fixer. So I was trying to fix everything.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and actually what that was doing was it wasn't allowing Lauren in any way to build any coping capability. She relied on me for everything, to do everything. And yes, kids obviously do that, but as they get older, you expect that they will start to do some things for themselves and feel a little bit more you know, able to try new things, or to like kind of go and do different things. But she wasn't building that coping capability because I was continually fixing everything. So she never had to face a problem or anything that
Yeah.
was difficult. And I really came to recognise that actually I couldn't make her happy. Actually, she had to feel happy from the inside out.
Yes.
And that the only person that could do that was herself, really, like with my support going through the programme. But
Yeah.
I think it opened both her eyes up, like, because the whole piece around her self-esteem, like I can't build Lauren's self-esteem.
No.
She has to build that for herself. So once I think we got that part, and it was about Lauren feeling more powerful in herself, and being able to fix those things for herself,
Yes.
that really she was able to kind of move on. And I think for me as a parent, I really had to untangle that belief that I couldn't be happy until that happened, because I really needed to work on myself first. So I
Yes.
needed to be happy, which was then positive role modelling. It was showing Lauren how you can build your own self-esteem, like demonstrating that, talking about it. So yeah, it was kind of both of us working together, I think, on that piece.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And you are right, you know, they do get kids, young kids, they do rely on you for everything. But if you are continually fixing it, and if you are trying to avoid their emotions, so if they're
Yeah.
unhelpful and negative emotions, and not letting them sit with them and not letting them work through them themselves, and if you are seeing, okay, well, my child being upset or my child being a little bit nervous or a little bit worried as a huge problem, then that's not allowing them to see it as, to minimize it for themselves. And it's not allowing them to sit with it and to work through it and see it as something that they can then solve, because you're always trying to jump in and trying to distract or trying to fix it or trying to offer solutions. And that, as a parent, can feel really uncomfortable the first few times that you do it, because if you're stepping back and you're used to going, okay, she's unhappy, let me fix it, and then you're going, she's unhappy, leave her to it, right? I'll support her, I'll ask the right questions, I'll guide her in the right direction, but I'm not fixing this for her. That feels really uncomfortable, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was probably as we were working through the programme where the benefit of both of us working through with the coach, because really I was challenging myself with those things as we were working through
Yes.
as well. So it was hard. Yeah, it was hard, and it was really hard, particularly when you've created this really collusive relationship where you're the safety zone and you're the safety net for like a child with emetophobia. So Lauren would ask me maybe 50 times a day, do you promise I'm not going to be sick? Do you promise I'm not going to be sick? So even to be able to change my response around that, to allow her to like realise that actually only she had the answer to that and that she could build her own resilience around that was pretty tough. We had difficult bedtimes, we had difficult times where she wasn't able to manage that, but she had to work through that experience as I did for her to overcome her emetophobia. So that's the programme really helped me with that. It was challenging at times, but I think it's definitely made me a better parent because now I can apply that in so many other things, like, Lauren's kind of coming into the teen years, so there's lots of things that she wants to do and that like we might disagree on or have some different boundaries on. So it's just applying those same kind of principles and same kind of ways of working. I think that's really helped our relationship.
Brilliant, absolutely. So to be really specific for the people that are listening, if you are a parent and your child is asking you 50 times a day, do you promise I'm not going to be sick or am I going to be sick? And your default may have been, no, you're not going to be sick, you're fine, you're just a bit nervous, right? What would your advice be now?
So what I changed, I guess, having learned the content of the programme, what I started talking to Lauren about was like, what's your evidence for that? Like, is that a helpful thought? Is it an unhelpful thought? What's your inner voice telling you right now? We'd learned a lot of skills through the programme, so she knew how to kind of change that inner voice or how to look at things more helpfully. We would talk about, are you just being catastrophic in your thinking? Is that like, where's the evidence that actually that's likely to happen? And then she became much more able to kind of work that through in her own head and say, right, actually, okay, I've not eaten for like the last 4 hours. I'm unlikely to have food poisoning now, or like, so she started to find her own facts and evidence. So, and she learned like different techniques. So like sort of the dream technique, which was just detecting when she was having that feeling and then being able to kind of recognise it and change it. So she really like used the skills herself. So instead of me being the one that was constantly telling her she would be okay, she learned to build the belief in herself that she knew that actually she would be okay. And over time, she just stopped asking. So she just stopped asking because she didn't need that reassurance, because actually she knew that she was creating those thoughts for herself and that actually she was the only one that could do something different with that. So, and she hadn't really learned that when we, like I said, we did CBT for quite a while, and she didn't learn anything like those skills when we did that. She just talked through things that didn't really work for emetophobia, didn't really work for her. So the fact that she was building her own capability and like ability, competence to be able to like help herself was just really powerful to see.
Good. You said it over time she stopped asking. So my thought process question, if I was sitting here as a mum thinking, okay, but how did you do it to begin with? Because did you get pushback when you first said to her, I can't tell you you're not going to be sick, but if you are going to be sick, you'll be fine. But where's the evidence? Did you get pushback? What was the response those first few times you did that?
Yes, Lauren's pretty strong-willed, so there was definite pushback. And that was where I guess I had to stand quite strong and like what I was learning with the programme, because it would have been so easy just to continue to like do as we'd been doing. So I think as well, though, Lauren very early on realised, like from that first kind of couple of chapters and first couple of sessions, that actually she didn't really need my reassurance. So there was probably less pushback than you might think, because she was already building her own knowledge of, right, actually this is just my thoughts. So we didn't have a full-on meltdown, because actually at the same time as I was like learning how to kind of just help her a bit in a bit of a different way, she was also learning to help herself. So the pushback probably wasn't as severe as you might expect it to be, and I think over time that she stopped asking because she became more confident. So
brilliant. Okay, so got Lauren through the programme. She went from strength to strength. I remember, within a few weeks she was doing things that she was never able to do, going to festivals and things, which is really exciting. Then you went about your life, but then you came back later on and you said, no, this actually, I want to do this for myself now. Why? What was the catalyst for that? What was the driving force behind that?
Yeah, so I think when I went through the programme with Lauren, I realised and recognised how powerful the programme was. But my main focus at that time was to help Lauren overcome her emetophobia. So whilst I worked through the manual and I did the exercises and like I did a lot of the work, I mainly spent my time with Lauren because that was like what I needed to do at that point in time. So I think like I did recognise as we were going through it with Lauren that I had a lot of really unhelpful limiting beliefs that
Yeah.
were not really serving me well. And I think once Lauren got better and started to do things and we started to go out as a family, we started to kind of do more things, like life got back to some kind of normality, and I kind of realised that I'd lost myself somewhere in that, because actually
Yeah.
now I had this child that was happier, but I had lost my confidence with, like, you know, going out with friends or going out to like social events, and like my self-esteem was probably pretty low. I'd
Yeah.
changed roles at work. I wasn't particularly enjoying the new role that I was doing. So I probably at that point, I hit a little bit of rock bottom,
Yeah.
and realised that actually, do you know, I need to help myself here, because actually Lauren has done all this really great work in terms of like getting better and getting overcoming her emetophobia. I've done that work, but now I've stopped it. So I need to really focus on myself and get myself thriving as well, because actually I knew how powerful role modelling that
Yeah.
would be for Lauren, but I also knew how impactful it would be for me in my own life.
Yes.
Which at that time I just, it was like, felt a little bit of a crossroads.
Yeah. Okay. So when you went through it yourself then, how was that different to taking Lauren through it? What was the
So
difference there?
yeah, so I think because I 100% focused on myself, so I like devoted the time to myself. I really like threw myself into the program of like challenging my own beliefs, of really unpicking that piece around like my children's happiness depending on me, around you know, like I was quite a people pleaser, so if people around me weren't happy, I was quite affected by their emotions. And so really learning to like focus on myself and realise that I am a single person. Like I'm not attached at the hip to others' emotions or others you know, what's going on in their life. Yes, I can be a great mum, I can like be good at my job, I can do all these other things, but I think just really kind of doing that for myself,
Yes.
and giving myself the time and space to really unpick those beliefs was probably the most helpful.
Brilliant. And what's been the impact on not only your life, but on the kids' lives as well? 'Cause you've got two daughters, haven't you? So
Yeah.
what's been the impact on yourself and your daughters?
Yeah, so it's been amazing. So obviously, since I kind of did the program for myself, I then later decided to do the training to become a coach. That's
Very
been like a
excited.
phenomenal life
Yeah.
change, and I now just love being able to support other people through kind of these journeys as well. So, I mean, for us now as a family, we go out and we do lots of different things as a family. We don't have the meltdowns. We don't have any like anticipatory anxiety about anything we're doing. But most of all, it's the role modelling piece. I hear my kids play back to me like, "Mum, is that really unhelpful? Is that really helpful thinking? Are you being a bit unhelpful? Like, you're being a bit catastrophic in your language there, or is it really that
Yeah.
bad?" So it's amazing because they start to just like play all that back to you, and they kind of work things out for themselves. So there's little parts of the program that, you know, I do with my younger daughter as well. Just she does like a little list of all the things she's proud of and what that
Nice.
tells her about herself, and she reads that kind of every day. And so there's just so many positive things that have come out of it, but definitely the role modelling piece is like the strongest and like most life-changing probably piece for us as a family.
Yes.
That's been the benefits of that, because they really do just think differently now, which
Yes.
is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And it's not hard to see, although sometimes it's very difficult to put that into practice when you've got a child that's struggling.
Yeah.
When you are going, well, you know, she's really struggling or they're really struggling, they're having the meltdowns, they're having the panic attacks, you know, the effort right now needs to be spent on them. The effort right now needs to be spent on getting them better and them feeling better. And absolutely, to a certain degree, it does. But you role modeling is only going to accelerate their progress. Because if you're not thriving yourself, and if you're still using unhelpful language, if you're still responding to them catastrophically or responding to them in a powerless way, or trying to fix things for them, not letting them sit with their emotions, if you're not modeling the way that you want them to process things, if you will, and modeling how to think in that really effective way, then you're almost slowing them down, if that makes sense, because they're having to navigate, okay, well, you're kind of asking me to do something here that you're not doing yourself, which is very difficult for a child. You know, it's a very difficult thing to have to wrap your head around. Okay, well, I'm being asked to do this work, speak kindly to myself. You mentioned that, the positives there, the positive list, which boosts self-esteem. So if you're asking your child to boost their own self-esteem, but all the while feeling really rubbish about yourself, and all the while having really low self-esteem yourself, that is going to be portrayed in your spontaneous language. You are going to be saying things that give that away, that you do have low self-esteem. But at the same time, you're asking them to build their self-esteem, so you're not leading by example, if you will. So, the role modeling and the leading by example, I think, is the main point really here, isn't it? It's so, so important, and it has such a massive impact. So understanding that when, you are a parent and you're looking for help for your child's emetophobia, that it's not an isolated thing. Okay, if they are younger than teen years, you need to be there with them, alongside them, every step of the way, and having a mirror up in front of yourself as well, and going, okay, I'm not a perfect human. No one's a perfect human. There's always room for self-development and self-improvement. What can I do? How can I change that is then going to help my child? Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing is it doesn't need to be like, time you're spending like in a fixed time every day. Like we just have those conversations at the dinner table about
Yes.
like actually, when what was your inner voice saying today, or like actually were you able to change your thought, or like that was really unhelpful, but actually when I rethought about it, this is what happened. And
Yeah.
like actually just demonstrating that and role modeling it, because like I still don't always get it right.
No.
That's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes I'll like get upset or annoyed about something, but actually now we can kind of quickly laugh about it and just remind ourselves that that's actually not particularly helpful. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me was probably learning around, like I had a really high need for control, and that was about me like keeping my worries safe. So, I had these two little kids, and they were the most precious things and are the most precious things in my life. But actually they just, like I lost myself somewhere in trying to protect them and make sure everything was okay. And actually now that I have allowed them to have some freedom and like release the need to know where they are every minute of every day, it's that's probably been the biggest impact for me, because now I do go back out with my friends, I have a social life again, and the kids like to see that, because it actually encourages them to do the same. So
It does.
yeah, definitely agree. It's really important to identify and look after yourself, identify those areas that maybe you need to work on a little bit more.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Fabulous, Claire. So is there, obviously you mentioned you're a coach now, and you're based up in Scotland, but you see people from all over the world via Zoom.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you would like to say at this point to anybody who's watching this podcast and thinking, oh, crikey, I think that would be really good, and it's something that I would like to do alongside my child or work with my child? What would your bits of advice be? Your golden nuggets?
Yeah, I think absolutely like try this program, because it will change your life. It changed our life, like as a family. It changed Lauren's life. It changed the relationship between Lauren and I, because I think it had become quite fraught, because I didn't know how to kind of help her manage that situation. So we would have like quite a bit of friction if we were trying to go anywhere or do anything. So it's really helped us kind of really repair a bit of a relationship that, had started to become a bit damaged, just because I didn't know how best to help. So yeah, definitely it's the best thing we have done. It really helps not only Lauren, but like it helps my younger daughter as well, because we use some of the techniques, some of the tips. My parenting styles completely changed. So it's just life changing. It really is. And if we hadn't found that, I think we would be in an entirely different place right now. Like Lauren started high school this year and went without any problem and is loving the change and like loving all the different classes and lots of things there. So it's, yeah, I'd say just, make that call. It's definitely worth it.
Worth it. Lovely. Fantastic. Thank you. So it's been lovely to have you on the podcast today, and I'm hoping that you will join us again at some stage, maybe to talk through a different area of the programme. But if you are watching and thinking I'd love to get in touch, then Claire is here ready to speak to you and guide you through. But for now, thank you very much for joining us, Claire, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you. You too, Michelle.